The night sky was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. Dark clouds hung low over the broken city ruins. In the middle of the cracked street stood a single human, calm and still. Around him, shadows moved, alien soldiers, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They carried weapons that hummed with strange energy. One of them stepped forward. His voice was sharp, almost mocking. "You could run again," he said, his tone full of confidence. The human did not move. He simply looked at them, his eyes steady and cold. A faint smile appeared on his face, the kind of smile that made even the bravest soldier uneasy. Then he spoke in a low voice. "Once was enough." The words echoed in the night air. The aliens froze for a moment, their movements slowing as if fear had crawled into their bones. What did he mean? Why did his voice carry such certainty? They were trained hunters. They had chased humans before, and most had fallen. But this man stood as if the idea of running was an insult. The alien leader narrowed his eyes. "You think we fear you?" he asked. His claws flexed around his weapon. The human only shrugged. "You should." The other soldiers shifted uneasily. They remembered the stories, the whispers about one human who had escaped their hunt years ago. He had turned the hunters into prey. The details were unclear. Some said he had destroyed an entire squad alone. Others claimed he used tricks, traps, and strange human patience to bring them down. No one truly knew what had happened that night. But every soldier remembered the same ending. Only the human had survived. Now, standing in the ruins, the same man faced them again. One of the younger soldiers growled. "He is just one. There are many of us." The leader raised a hand to silence him. His eyes never left the human. Something inside him whispered that this was not an ordinary prey. The human finally took a step forward. Dust rose under his boot. He moved without fear, without hesitation, as if the circle of armed enemies meant nothing. "I told you before," he said softly. "Humans don't need to run twice." The leader clenched his teeth. The soldiers around him tightened their grips on their weapons. Tension filled the air like a storm about to break. The human tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something far away. "Do you hear it?" he asked. "Hear what?" One alien snapped. The human's smile widened, but he said nothing more. His silence was louder than any threat. For a moment, the wind howled through the ruins, carrying the smell of burned stone and metal. The silence after was unbearable. Every alien expected something to happen, something sudden and violent. But the man stood still, his shadow long under the broken moonlight. Then, without warning, he whispered, "This place remembers me." The aliens looked at each other in confusion. The ruins were nothing but stone and dust. What could a city remember? Yet his words carried weight, like hidden meaning they could not understand. The leader barked a laugh, trying to break the tension. "You survived once. You will not survive again." The human's eyes locked onto his, cold, steady, unblinking. "I did not survive," he said. "I ended it." The soldiers shifted again. The younger ones looked restless, unsure whether to strike or wait. But deep inside, a sense of dread grew stronger. This was not the weak prey they were trained to hunt. This was something else. The leader finally raised his weapon. "Enough words. If you will not run, you will fall where you stand." The human lowered his head slightly, as if accepting the challenge. But his voice remained calm, steady, and terrifying. "I told you. Once was enough." The leader's weapon charged, glowing brighter. The soldiers prepared to attack. But just before the first shot could be fired, a sound echoed through the ruins. It was not the weapon. It was something else, something older, deeper. The ground trembled softly beneath their feet. A metal groan rose from the shadows, as if the ruins themselves were waking up. Dust fell from the broken buildings. The air grew heavy, pressing against their chests. The human raised his eyes. He did not move, did not raise a weapon, but he spoke once more. "You are not ready for this place." The aliens hesitated. Fear crept into their eyes. None of them understood what was happening. But one thing was clear. This man was not standing alone. The ruins, the night, the silence. They all seemed to stand with him. And for the first time, the hunters wondered if they had just walked into a trap. The ruins shook with the strange sound. The alien soldiers tightened their circle, their claws ready, their weapons humming. Yet none of them fired. Something in the man's calm eyes kept them frozen. The leader forced himself to stay firm. He had heard the old stories, but he never believed them. He wanted to believe this was just a man, nothing more. Yet the way the ground trembled made his doubts grow stronger. The human stayed silent, watching them like a hunter studying prey. His stillness was not weakness. It was control. Finally, one of the younger aliens lost patience. He raised his weapon and shouted, "He is only one! And him!" The weapon fired. A bright flash cut through the night air and struck the ground. The explosion shook dust into the sky. For a moment, nothing could be seen. When the smoke cleared, the human was gone. The soldiers froze. Their eyes darted left and right. The leader cursed under his breath. "Find him!" But before they could spread out, a voice came from behind them. Calm, cold. Too slow, they spun around. The human was standing on a broken wall, his body outlined by moonlight. He had moved so fast, so silent, it felt impossible. The younger alien who had fired stepped back, his breathing sharp. He remembered the whispers. Years ago, during their first war on this planet, a squad of hunters had cornered a human just like this. They thought they had him trapped. But he had slipped away, one by one cutting them down until none remained. That story was never written in their records. It was told only in hushed voices, as a warning. The soldiers called him the shadow that does not run. The leader snarled to hide his unease. "You were lucky before. This time there are more of us. This time we are ready." The human tilted his head, his eyes never leaving the leader. "You still don't understand. What do you mean?" One alien barked. The man's smile returned. "The first time was not luck. It was choice." The soldiers stiffened. His words carried weight, as if each one revealed a truth they did not want to face. The leader growled, but inside his chest, doubt spread. He remembered being a young soldier when he first heard the story. How one man had turned a full squad into ghosts. How he never ran, never begged, never feared, and now, here he stood again. The human's voice grew lower. "When I said once was enough, I meant it. You should not have come back." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rust and ash. The ruins around them seemed alive, whispering of old battles and forgotten screams. The younger alien, who had fired earlier, tried to act brave. "We are not the same as before. Our weapons are stronger, our numbers greater. You will not—" He stopped. His words froze in his throat. The human had vanished again. The soldier spun, searching wildly. The others followed, their hearts pounding. Suddenly, the man's voice came from the shadows, so close it felt like he was breathing against their ears. "Numbers mean nothing in the dark." A sharp crack echoed. One of the soldiers screamed, his weapon ripped from his claws. The others jumped back, panic breaking their order. The leader shouted, "Hold your ground!" But fear was stronger than discipline. They knew now this was no ordinary human. This was the same shadow that had haunted their kind for years. The human stepped out from the dark once more, his movements calm, almost casual. He held the fallen alien's weapon in his hand, then dropped it to the ground with a loud clang. "You think I survived you once," he said softly. "But survival was never the game. It was the hunt." The soldiers' eyes widened. The word hunt sent chills through them. They were hunters by nature, by training. But this human was different. He spoke as if they were the prey. The leader's claws shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. He raised his weapon again, his voice breaking. Why do you not run?" The human's reply was simple, almost like a whisper in the wind. "Because I already know how this ends." For a moment, silence ruled the ruins. The alien soldiers felt it, an unseen weight pressing on their chests. The man's calm was more terrifying than any weapon. And then, with a slow step forward, the human's eyes glowed faintly in the broken moonlight. "You should have remembered the first encounter," he said. "It was never mine." "It was yours." The soldiers felt their throats tighten. They had entered the ruins to hunt a man. But standing before them was no prey. It was the same shadow from the past. The same hunter who had ended an entire squad without mercy, and he had just promised to do it again. The ruins stood silent after the humans' words. Dust floated in the moonlight, carried by the wind like ash. The alien soldiers did not speak. Their weapons were raised, but their hands trembled. They remembered the stories, and now those stories were standing in front of them, alive, breathing, watching. The leader clenched his teeth. He could not let fear show. If his men saw weakness, the human had already won. He raised his voice, forcing strength into every word. Do not forget who we are. We are hunters! He is only one man. The soldiers shifted, but doubt lingered in their eyes. The human tilted his head, almost amused. You keep saying that, he replied softly. Only one. Yet here you stand, afraid. The words cut deeper than any blade. The leader growled, Enough! We will finish this now. Before he could give the order to fire, the ground trembled again. A low groan echoed through the ruins, like old metal waking from sleep. The soldiers stepped back, unsure if it was an earthquake or something worse. The human's voice came calm and steady. Do you hear it? This place remembers, the leader barked. What is this nonsense? But inside, his chest tightened. He could feel it too, the ruins breathing, whispering, alive in a way that was not natural. The human took a slow step forward, his boots pressing against the broken stones. I have walked these streets before. I know every shadow, every corner. You came back to hunt, but this place was never yours. The soldiers scanned the ruins nervously. Broken towers loomed above them like silent watchers. The cracked walls seemed to lean closer, listening. The more they looked, the more they felt that the ruins were not empty. They were filled with memories. Dark ones, the leader growled again, trying to keep control. It does not matter what happened before. This time, we came prepared. He gestured, and more shadows appeared from behind the ruins. Reinforcements. Another squad, larger than the first, stepped into the moonlight. Their weapons gleamed, their armor heavier. The younger soldiers breathed in relief. Numbers gave them courage again. The circle around the human grew tighter. The human did not flinch. His eyes moved across the new soldiers as if counting them. Then his faint smile returned. You came back? All of you. Good. That saves me the trouble of finding you later. The leader bared his teeth. Arrogant fool. Do you really believe you can face us all? The human's voice dropped, almost like a whisper, but it carried through the cold air. I already have. The soldiers froze. Some looked at their leader, unsure if they had heard correctly. Already have? Was he speaking of the past or something else? The leader laughed harshly. Lies, tricks. You escaped once, but tonight you will not escape. The human's smile faded. For the first time, his eyes grew hard, sharp as steel. You still don't understand. I did not escape. I ended it. And now, you have returned to me. The leader raised his weapon. Attack! The ruins lit up with flashes of light. Weapons roared, fire cutting through the darkness. Explosions shook the streets, throwing dust and stone into the air. For long moments, the ruins became chaos. Fire, smoke, screams. When the smoke cleared, the soldiers blinked in disbelief. The man was gone. Where is he? One soldier shouted. They searched wildly. Broken walls, shattered streets, fallen towers. Nothing. Then, one by one, they heard it. A sound carried in the wind. A soft whistle, calm, steady, close. The soldiers turned. On top of a half-broken tower, the human stood again, his shadow long against the moon. His clothes were torn by dust and fire, but his body was untouched. His voice rang out across the ruins. You return with more soldiers, but numbers change nothing. You still hunt shadows with blind eyes. He stepped down from the tower, vanishing between broken walls, his voice echoing around them. You forgot the first time. You forgot how it ended, but I never forget. The soldiers moved together, their formation breaking as they searched the ruins. The younger ones felt panic rising again. Each corner, each shadow felt alive, like something was waiting to strike. The leader shouted, "Stay together!" But his own heart raced faster with every passing second. He could not see the man. He could not hear his steps. Only the voice, moving everywhere as if the ruins themselves spoke. Finally, the human's words drifted out once more. You should not have returned. You thought time erased the truth, but the ruins remember. And so do I! A sudden scream tore through the air. One of the soldiers vanished into the shadows, dragged without a sound. Another spun around, firing wildly, but hit nothing. Panic spread like fire. The hunters felt it now. What their fathers and their fathers before had feared. The shadow had returned. The leader shouted over the chaos, his voice cracking. "Stand your ground! Do not let him break you!" But deep inside, he knew. The ground was already broken. The moment they returned to this place, the moment they challenged the man who once ended them, their fate was sealed. The human was no longer just a man. He was the past returning, and he had promised. Once was enough. The ruins were alive with fear. Alien soldiers moved in tight groups now, their weapons shaking in their claws. Every shadow felt dangerous. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps. The human was nowhere to be seen, yet his presence was everywhere. The leader barked orders, his voice harsh. "Stay close. He wants to divide us. Do not let him!" But his men were already divided in their hearts. They were hunters who now felt like prey. Their eyes darted across the ruins, expecting the human to strike at any moment. Suddenly, a soft whistle echoed again. It seemed to come from the left. A squad of soldiers turned and ran toward the sound. They vanished behind a broken tower. Seconds later, screams ripped through the night. Then silence. The rest froze. Their blood ran cold. The leader's jaw tightened. "Do not chase sounds. He is pulling you into his game!" But it was too late. Another whistle came, this time from the right. A smaller group panicked and fired blindly. Their weapons lit the ruins in flashes of red. Dust fell from the walls. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing there, only broken stone, and the human's voice, low and steady. "You came to hunt? But I set the ground long ago," the leader snarled. "Coward, face us directly." From the shadows came a short laugh, dry and cold. "You think I am hiding?" "No, I am waiting." The leader's claws dug into his weapon. He could feel control slipping away. His men were trembling, their formation breaking more with each passing second. He needed to end this fast. "Forward!" he shouted. "We move together. Push through the ruins. He cannot fight us all." The soldiers obeyed, though their steps were heavy with fear. They moved as one, sweeping through the streets. Their lights scanned every corner. At first, it felt like progress. No attacks, no voice. The silence gave them hope. Then one soldier noticed something. The walls around them had strange marks, lines scratched deep into the stone, circles, symbols, arrows. At first they looked random, but the more they moved forward, the more the symbols repeated. The younger alien's voice shook. "Commander, these marks, they were made by him," the leader snarled. "Ignore them." But even he felt a chill. The scratches looked old, weathered by time. How long had they been here? Years? Decades? The realization hit them slowly. The human had not chosen this place tonight. He had prepared it long ago. The ground shook again, faint, but real. A stone wall ahead crumbled suddenly, blocking their path. Behind them, another section of ruins collapsed, cutting off retreat. The soldiers spun around, trapped in a narrow street between broken towers. Dust filled the air. Then the human's voice came, closer than ever. "You thought you were leading the hunt. But every step you took, every path you chose, was mine." The soldiers raised their weapons, panic breaking their discipline. One fired into the shadows. Another shouted. The air was thick with fear. The leader roared, "Hold the line!" But his voice was drowned by the sound of shifting stone. The ground beneath them cracked. Metal beams hidden in the rubble snapped loose, slamming into the street with deafening force. It was no accident. It was design. The ruins were not ruins. They were a trap. The human stepped into view at the far end of the street. His figure was dark, outlined by the moon. Dust swirled around him, glowing faintly in the light. The leader raised his weapon, aiming at him. But the man spoke first. "You walked into my memory. You thought time erased it. But I built this place for you." The soldiers fired. Explosions lit the night, tearing into walls and stone. But as the dust cleared, the man was gone again. And then, the ground beneath one squad gave way. Hidden pits opened, swallowing soldiers into darkness. Their screams echoed, then vanished. The survivors stumbled back, their eyes wide with horror. The leader shouted, "It's just tricks! He cannot fight us forever!" But his own voice cracked with fear. Another wall collapsed, crushing two soldiers. Their weapons sparked as they died. From the shadows, the human's whisper reached them once more. You thought I was alone, but I have been here longer than you. Every stone, every wall, every silence, it belongs to me. The soldiers huddled together now, their courage broken. Some whispered prayers in their alien tongue. Others stared into the shadows, waiting for death. The leader tried to stand tall, but sweat dripped down his face. He had led his soldiers into a cage, and the man who set it was closing the door. Finally, the human's voice came again, calm and final. You called me prey. You asked why I did not run. The answer is simple. He stepped from the shadows closer this time, his eyes burning in the moonlight. The ground shook harder than before, a deep rumble that made the broken streets split wider. Dust rained down from the half-fallen towers. Alien soldiers stumbled, some dropping their weapons as the earth beneath them groaned like a living beast. The leader shouted, "Stand firm! Do not panic!" But even his own claws dug into the ground for balance. He could feel it. The ruins were no longer just stone. Something was hidden beneath them. The human stood in the middle of the street, calm as the chaos swirled around him. His eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, his voice carrying across the dust-filled air. You never asked why I said once was enough. You thought I spoke of fear. You thought I spoke of mercy. But I spoke of this. The soldiers raised their weapons at him, but their hands shook. Every instinct told them to shoot, yet every instinct also screamed that it would not matter. One of the younger aliens shouted, desperate to break the silence. "What are you?" The man tilted his head, almost curious at the question. "I am human," he said softly. "And humans do not fight alone." The rumble grew into a roar. The street split open, stone and metal tearing apart. From beneath the ruins, massive shapes began to rise. At first, the aliens thought it was the earth itself moving, but as the dust cleared, they saw the truth. Machines. Buried under the city for years, old human war machines rose again. Their metal bodies were scarred, rusted, but alive with strange light. Huge weapons unfolded from their sides, glowing faintly with stored power. They were not alien. They were human. The soldiers stared in disbelief. Their training told them humans were weak, a species to be hunted. But these machines, tall as towers, armed like storms, told another story. The leader's voice cracked. "Impossible. Your kind could not build this." The human stepped forward, his hand brushing the cracked wall beside him. "You never understood us. You saw us as fragile. But fragility is only the mask." One of the machines turned its head slowly, gears grinding. Its eyes lit with a cold blue flame. The ground shook as it took its first step, heavy and final. The soldiers opened fire in panic. Blasts of energy struck the machine's armor, but the bolts scattered uselessly, sparks dancing across the steel. The machine did not stop. The human's calm voice cut through the chaos. "You thought I survived by chance. No, I survived because we prepared. Every stone you walk on, every ruin you see, is part of the weapon." Another machine rose behind him, pulling itself from the ground like a giant waking from a long sleep. Its cannons locked onto the alien soldiers, their glowing barrels humming with deadly power. The soldiers screamed, firing desperately, but their shots only painted the machines in light. Nothing could break their steel. The leader's heart raced. He remembered the stories of the First War. The whispers said a human turned the ruins themselves into weapons. He had dismissed it as legend. Now standing before him, the legend breathed. The human's eyes burned like fire. "You asked me why I did not run. The answer is simple. Why would I chase you twice, when I already built a cage for you?" The first machine fired. A blinding flash tore through the street, crushing a squad of soldiers into silence. The ground shook again as debris rained from above. Screams echoed, then vanished. The aliens scattered, but there was nowhere to run. Walls collapsed where they fled. Traps hidden in the ruins triggered, spears of metal shooting upward, cutting paths closed. The human walked forward slowly, unhurried, as the machines obeyed him like shadows. His calm steps were more terrifying than the thunder of the weapons. The leader stumbled back, his pride cracking into fear. This is not possible." The human's voice was soft but sharp. "You should have stayed away. But you returned. And so, the trap is complete. Another machine fired, leveling an entire building into rubble. Dust consumed the air, thick and choking. The soldiers coughed, their vision blurred. Through the haze, they saw only one figure, still walking, calm and steady, the human. He raised his hand slightly, and the machines fell silent. Their glowing eyes dimmed, waiting. The soldiers froze, their weapons useless, their courage gone. The man's voice carried one last time, cold as stone. This is not war. This is memory. And memory does not forgive. The ground trembled again, louder, deeper. The machines shifted, preparing for something greater. The soldiers realized with horror. They had not seen the full weapon yet. The ruins were still holding secrets, and the human was ready to reveal them. The ruins were fire and smoke now. The giant machines moved like shadows of steel, their heavy steps shaking the broken city. Every blast from their weapons turned the night sky bright as day. Alien soldiers screamed and scattered, but there was no safety. Every street they tried to run through collapsed. Every wall hid another trap. The ruins themselves had become the enemy. The leader shouted over the chaos, his voice breaking. "Hold the line! Fight back!" But his words had no weight anymore. His soldiers fired, but their weapons bounced off steel armor. The machines were old, scarred, rusted, yet unstoppable. The human walked in the center of it all, calm, his eyes sharp, his every step measured. He did not need to fight. The ruins fought for him. The machines obeyed him. His silence was heavier than the thunder around him. One of the younger aliens screamed, "This is no man! He is a monster!" The human's gaze shifted toward him, and the young soldier froze. The man did not speak, but in that silence was truth. He was not the monster. They were. The leader's claws shook. He had seen battles, he had hunted prey across worlds, but nothing had ever felt like this. He finally understood why the stories were spoken in whispers. Why no hunter wanted to face this man again. He had returned to finish what was started. The leader roared in desperation and charged forward. His claws glowed with energy, his weapon raised high. He aimed straight for the human's chest, but before he could strike, a machine's arm swung down like a hammer. The ground split under the impact. The leader was thrown back, his weapon shattered. His body hit the broken street hard. The human stopped walking. For the first time, he looked directly at the leader. Their eyes locked. "You came back," the man said, his voice low. "That was your last mistake." The leader coughed, blood dripping from his mouth. We are hunters. We will never stop." The man's expression hardened. "Then you will end here." The soldiers tried one last desperate attack. They gathered in groups, firing all at once. Their weapons lit the air, their voices full of rage and fear. The machines answered. Their cannons glowed brighter than before, releasing waves of fire that tore through the alien lines. Explosions shook the ruins. Screams filled the night. The last stand had begun. The leader pushed himself up, limping, his body shaking. He saw his soldiers fall one by one. He saw the machines moving like gods of war. And he saw the human, calm, unbroken, unstoppable. For the first time in his life, he felt true fear. The human spoke again, each word like a blade. "You thought once was luck. You thought I was prey. But tonight you see the truth. Humans do not run. We wait, we build, we remember." The machines stepped closer, surrounding the last of the soldiers. Their glowing eyes lit the dust, their weapons humming, ready for the final strike. The leader staggered back, his voice shaking. "You cannot fight forever. There will be more of us, more hunters. You cannot stop them all." The human's smile returned, faint and cold. "I do not need to. You will carry this story back. If you live long enough." The ground roared again. The ruins seemed alive, vibrating with hidden power. The machines raised their weapons, their cannons glowing brighter, brighter, until the night itself trembled. The soldiers screamed. Some dropped their weapons. Some fell to their knees. Others tried to run, but the walls closed around them. The leader covered his face as the machines fired. A wave of fire and light consumed the street, shaking the world like thunder. When the dust cleared, silence followed. Most of the alien soldiers were gone, burned, broken, or buried beneath the ruins. The machines stood tall, smoke rising from their cannons, And in the center, the human remained. Calm, silent, alive. The leader, broken but breathing, crawled across the shattered stones. His body trembled, his eyes wide with horror. The man stepped closer, his shadow falling over him. "This was your last stand," he said softly. The leader gasped for air. Why let me live?" The human's eyes burned with cold fire. "Because you must carry the memory, and memory spreads fear faster than fire." The leader felt his blood run cold. He finally understood. The human did not need to kill them all. He only needed one survivor to tell the story, to spread the terror. The ruins shook one last time, as if the earth itself closed its mouth. The machines returned to silence, sinking slowly back into the ground, waiting for the next return. The human turned his back and walked away, his voice echoing behind him. Once was enough. The leader's heart pounded as darkness closed around him. He realized too late, this was never a battle. It was always a warning. The night was silent after the fire. Smoke rose from the ruins like the breath of a dying world. What was once a proud hunting army was now broken stone, scorched metal, and scattered ash. The leader lay on the ground, his body heavy with pain. Every breath was sharp. His claws twitched, but he could not rise. Around him, the last of his soldiers were gone. The machines had sunk back into the earth, waiting for another time. Only the human remained. He stood tall in the center of the ruins, calm as ever, his face untouched by fear or rage. His shadow stretched across the cracked ground, long and endless. His eyes glowed faintly in the smoke, and the leader felt a shiver colder than death. The human walked closer, slow, steady. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in the leader's chest. Finally, he stopped, standing above his fallen enemy. "You asked me to run again," the man said. His voice was quiet, yet it filled the air. But running was never the point. The leader coughed, his body shaking. "What are you?" The man knelt, his eyes locked on the broken warrior. "The answer you seek is simple," he said. "I am human." The words seemed too small for the weight they carried. The leader tried to laugh, but it came out as blood. "Human? You speak as if that explains everything. What makes your kind so different? Why do you not fear us? Why do you not run?" The man's expression did not change. His voice was calm, but every word was heavy. "Because humans are born on a death world. Every day, from the moment we take our first breath, we are hunted. By the cold, by hunger, by storms and beasts, by each other. We do not survive because we are the strongest. We survive because we refuse to die." The leader's eyes widened. He had heard rumors of Earth, of the planet called a death world, but he had never believed them. Now, staring at this man, he knew the truth. The human leaned closer. "You think this is about winning battles? It is not. It is about endurance. You fight once, you fight twice, then you grow tired, you retreat. But we—" his eyes narrowed. "We never stop. Once is enough to teach us. Once is enough to prepare us. And after that, there is no second chance." The leader's claws scraped against the stone. "So this was never revenge?" The man stood again, his shadow falling across the ruins. "No, this was a lesson. A warning." The leader's heart pounded. His people had come to hunt. They had returned for pride, for glory. Now they were broken. And this human had spared him, not out of mercy, but out of purpose. "You will crawl back to your kind," the man said. "You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them that humans do not chase twice. We end things once." The leader felt his breath weaken. His pride screamed to deny it, to call the man a liar. But deep inside, fear swallowed everything. He knew the human spoke the truth. The ruins groaned as the wind shifted. Dust fell like ashes. The man turned, his back straight, his steps calm. He did not look back. The leader forced out one last question, his voice trembling. Why let me live? Why risk me bringing more?" The man paused at the edge of the broken street. Without turning, he spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut like steel, because fear is a stronger weapon than fire, and you will carry it for me. The leader's blood ran cold. The man disappeared into the smoke, his figure fading until only the memory remained. The machines were gone, the city silent, the night endless. The leader lay broken, his body weak. He stared at the stars above, and for the first time he felt small. He had thought himself a hunter. He had thought humans were prey. But now he knew the truth. Humans were something else. Something that could not be chased twice. His claws slipped from the stone, his eyes heavy. With his last strength, he whispered into the smoke, "Once was enough." Darkness closed around him, and far away across the stars, the warning had already begun to spread.